All right. Awesome. Nice to welcome everyone, and thanks for joining us for the Travel Japan podcast, where we talk about Japanese news culture, and we like to answer as many questions as we can about Japanese travel and otherwise. Um, I'm your host, Brandon Bates, and joining us today is my co-host, uh, Josh Collins. Welcome to the show, Josh. How you been doing today?
Thank you. I've been doing pretty well. Yeah, it's a nice day over here in Ohio. South more than you are, but yeah, I'm enjoying it.
Yeah, man. I honestly, dude, the weather here has been perfect for everything lately, for sure.
We
Um,
had like a small amount of fall taste where it got nice and cold, and I was like, yes, I can wear hoodies and hide my stomach. And then it went up again, so it's been coming back at me.
those are the days that I hide inside when it gets up to like the 80s out of nowhere during the fall.
Yeah, yeah,
just
I don't
hide,
like it.
just hide from myself.
It's
Um,
unnatural.
it is so unnatural. Um, but yeah, man. I think we had a few topic points that we wanted to discuss in regards to the news.
Hmm.
And I'm just going to pull those up real quick, and um, I want to maybe share those on the Twitch stream for everyone as well. So just give me one moment so I can pull that up. And
Sure.
this is all relatively new for us, everybody. So just give us a quick moment.
Oh, did you want me to do a self introduction at some point? I imagine that probably the beginning would be better than at the end.
Yeah, sure, absolutely, by all means.
Okay, so for anybody who doesn't know, my name's Josh. I grew up in Okinawa, Japan. I was there from middle school until I graduated high school. I was 19 and I came back to the U.S. I did go to an English speaking school though, so I didn't have like a traditional Japanese education, but I did go to Japanese cram schools um, on the weekdays and on the weekends and things like that. So I spent quite a long time in Japan, and I speak Japanese. I teach Japanese on TikTok and do videos about Japan on TikTok, answer people's questions, translate funny tattoos and things like that. So that's why I'm here. Brandon reached out to me and asked me if I wanted to hop on here, and I thought, yeah, this would be kind of fun. So I do media related stuff already, and I do a lot of stuff with Japan and Japanese language. So I figured that this would be something fun to do every now and then.
Yeah, and man, I'm super grateful that you decided to jump on here and help out. Because this is something that I was pretty passionate about in season one with the previous host, and with him just kind of up and leaving, it was kind of a shock at first because I was like, oh no, are we going to do the podcast anymore? But I stuck to my guns, tried to figure things out, and I'm super happy that you agreed to do episodes with me, and I'm also super happy that some of the people that I already had lined up for season two with the previous host didn't take really any offense to it and were willing to still do the episodes with me. So that was pretty cool. Um,
Absolutely.
and let's see here. Oh, there we go. But I do have the news pulled up. If you guys want to take a look at that on Twitch, if you're not watching us on Twitch, and you're just here in the podcast stage, I'm more than happy to share with you the topic points. But um, what we're looking at here is apparently in Japan right now, Pizza Hut is coming out with sandwiches that are like lunch packs that you can carry around with you. Like they kind of look like they're in little chip bags, but they're little pizza sandwiches. And I just
Funny.
thought they were all pretty interesting to look at personally.
That's really fun. By the way, I know these topic points. Like I have it pulled on my computer, but I've not actually read any of these. So I kind of wanted to react live to it.
Yeah, yeah, same.
Yeah.
I didn't really read any of them either. I was just uh, I, I like this website when it comes to just sheer enjoyable type of news that you get from Japan, uh,
Yeah.
because you don't know what to expect, and then you click on it, and when you're reading through it, it really does end up being a surprise every time. The stories that come through this website. But yeah, neither of us read either of these, so this will be an experience for everyone, all in the same. But yeah, looks like Pizza Hut is making pre-made sandwiches, and not just pizza sandwiches apparently too, but a majority of them are pizza sandwiches. But they're doing a collaboration with a company that already made lunch packs, essentially, that made like the strawberry cream sandwiches and so forth. But yeah, it's
That looks
pretty cool.
interesting. I mean, the one I'm looking at the packages right here. There's one tari mayo chicken, teri mayo chicken, like what teriyaki mayonnaise and chicken, and then quattro formaggi. I don't know what that is.
Yeah,
Quattro from fromaggi. I don't know what fromaggi is. It's
probably.
quattro fromage. What is that? I don't know what that is at all.
So that is actually going to be more in the Italian spectrum, saying it's four cheese.
Interesting.
So
Oh,
quattro
okay.
fromage is going to be four cheese, and it looks like it is, yeah, indeed, four different types of cheeses.
Oh, that's interesting. See, that's the funny thing about Japanese language is like, yeah, I speak Japanese, but there's a lot of gairaigo, which is like foreign words
Foreign
that are written
adopted
in
words.
katakana.
Hmm.
And if I don't know the language that it's in, like I don't know any European languages at all, I'm like, I don't know what fromage means. I have no clue because I only know Asian languages. So
Yeah,
there's some words in Japanese that like I have to ask somebody what it means, even though
and
somebody else
what's
might be like,
crazy
oh, it
too
means
is
four
like
cheese.
you would think that most, um, you know, foreign adopted words that are used in katakana, in Japan would be English, but surprisingly, most of it's actually Spanish and Italian from what I've seen. Um,
Yeah,
like there's definitely, don't get me
pan for
wrong,
bread.
yeah, like don't get me wrong, there's definitely a large portion of words that are adopted from the English language, but man, it does blow my mind how much is just straight up Italian and straight up, Spanish
There's German ones
translations.
too.
Hmm. Yeah,
The word for part-time job is Arbeitel, which is it comes from a German word that means like job or working or something like that.
yeah, and I mean that makes sense because the Dutch were the only ones able to trade with Japan for what, almost 100 years. So it
Yeah,
wouldn't surprise me that a large portion of German language was adopted by the Japanese population.
yeah,
Um,
that makes sense.
but yeah, it's, I don't know, the whole pizza thing though. It's pretty cool. Looks like they're going to be available on October 1st at most supermarkets, convenience stores, nationwide across Japan. But
Or are they gonna like microwave these, or like how are they gonna? Is this gonna be like you eat it cold, or how does that work?
yeah, I know. I was thinking the same thing. I'm assuming because I'm not seeing anything about microwaving it. I think they're just little lunch packs that you
Mm.
just eat them as they are. But obviously, I would probably nuke them. Not gonna lie, just crack that bag open and just nuke it for 30 seconds and warm it up. But
You know, it's funny because like if you've never been to Japan before and you've never eaten these kind of snacks that just like seem kind of like off the wall, it sometimes doesn't sound all that appetizing. If somebody just said, "Oh, we're going to serve you a pizza in a bag," and you're going to open it like a bag of chips and eat a pizza, I think
yeah,
most people would be like, "Oh, that's going to be disgusting." But because this is Japan, like this might be some like
high
really good
quality
food.
stuff. Yeah,
It might be something that's actually pretty nice.
like
I always tell people like,
you got to think like the run of the mill, right? The run of the mill like gas station chicken in America. You know what it
uh,
tastes like. It's dry,
yeah,
it's stale, it's garbage. Go to a Family Mart, like the
hmm,
nationwide convenience store that's built like a really clean Circle K in Japan, and you're going to have chicken that is not only juicy and delicious, but it's such a large portion for what you pay for. Was it like 200 yen for like a piece of chicken? And it's
yeah.
actually a relatively good meal or a snack on the go. So,
When you're talking about a country that has gas station food as like their, I mean, their version of like junk gas station food is like onigiri, which is like rice, tuna, mayonnaise, and seaweed, or like spam or something like that. And that's not like that's not really like bad food at all, but that's their version of like junk food. So when you have a country like that that
yeah.
has these snack foods that are considered bad for you because they have rice in it or something like that, you
Hmm.
know that like the more junk food like food they have are still going to be really good. So I would love to try this one day for sure. I'd have like I would go hard into teriyaki mayonnaise and chicken. That sounds delicious.
Yes, absolutely, man. Um, I, I just, I don't know. There's something cool about Japan when it comes to like pizza too. Is that they choose ingredients that you never would think that they would have on pizza. You know,
Mm.
I'm not saying
Corn is
like,
a big one.
what was that?
Corn is a really big one in
Oh
Japan to
yeah.
have on pizza.
Hmm. Like they have like what is it? What's that dish that's really popular? Like the dish of Osaka. It's like namiyaki or something like that.
Okonomiyaki?
Yeah, they have that on pizzas at like Domino's. Uh,
Oh, interesting.
yeah, yeah, I thought that was interesting
Hmm.
too. So
You know,
I feel like there's probably there if this gets popular, I know there's only like two different snack packs of pizza off, right now currently on here, but I feel like if this gets popular, it's probably going to blow up even more to more options of little snack size pizzas of different variety of flavors.
mm,
Um,
there's some small snacks like this that come from restaurants in Japan that like blow up.
mhm.
Um, when I was in Japan, the huge thing from McDonald's was called shaka shaka chicken,
Yeah,
which stands for like shake shake chicken.
shake shake
So it
chicken.
was fried chicken. You put it in a sleeve, and then they give you different flavoring. So it could be like black pepper or lemon pepper, cheese or something like that. And
Mm,
you put the fried chicken in the sleeve, and you put this flavoring in there, and you shake it up. And then people used to put that on top of like a McDouble, so it'd be like a McDouble with like a fried chicken patty that had flavoring on it. I think
yes.
they got rid of it. I don't think that it's there anymore. But small things like that explode in Japan, and foreigners like the number one people that eat it,
Oh,
which
and they
makes
and they
sense.
come in
Like,
waves too. Like things
yeah,
blow up when it comes to food in Japan for like a short period of time. It's always limited these cool experimentations that these brands like to do with their food, and
hmm
you'll probably see it for like a year and then it's gone, or just a season too. Uh,
hmm
um, like uh, what's that one small bag of ice cream that you can get over there? I can't remember the name of it. Um,
the company that makes it or the specific type of ice
the
cream.
company that makes it. Um,
Blue Seal is a really big one in Japan.
Blue Seal, and there's another
Hmm
one, but those um, Coolish, I think is what it's called, Coolish. Uh,
Coolish. Okay.
yeah,
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay.
Coolish. They like to make these. They're like little bags that have frozen, custard or ice cream or whatever in it, but like they have different flavors depending on the season, and then they'll also have
hmm
specific flavors for like short runs for like Pokemon and stuff. Like
Yeah.
Pikachu flavor, this or that, and you'll never see them again. And it's not like that in really in America that much. Like brands stick to their flavors and what they have, and you just have it, and that's it. There's very
Except for Taco Bell.
yeah, except for
Taco Bell's the
Taco
worst with that. They give me the best food. They'll be like, "Oh, here's a volcano burrito." I'm like, "Oh, this is
Take it.
fire. I love it." And they just rip it away. Same with the fries. What are
I
they
was just
doing?
gonna say their fries is that's so rude to take that off the menu ever. You can't just put
I'm
something like the taco fries that they have at Taco Bell and then just remove it. It's so
Yeah,
rude.
I didn't leave Japan to come to America just to have my heart ripped out by Taco Bell every other season.
Absolutely. Oh, so I'm going to move on to the next topic point in the news,
Sure.
which is going to be Japanese toilet paper collection that it claims opens our minds as we open our butts. I don't know if that was a translation that they wanted to use, that it was just silly, but essentially what it is it is toilet paper that you can, and let me refresh this real quick. It is toilet paper that you can while you're pulling it out and you're getting ready to use it, you can read it, and it helps Japanese people learn English. But honestly, that works both ways. You can see in English what it is in hiragana or katakana above it, and kanji, and just kind of practice your language learning skills by rolling out the TP. But I thought that was pretty cool. No need for a Genki textbook whenever you have toilet paper in Japan, apparently. So,
That is hilarious. I'm looking at this right now. So the first one that it shows like English translations, "Toire
mhm.
wa doko desu ka?" which means where is the restroom? But underneath it, instead of saying where is the restroom, it says the where
Yeah.
is restroom. So I wonder if that's like, and then underneath that, "Toire wo karite mo ii?" Can I use the restroom?
Hmm.
The I may restroom use. So that's interesting. Oh, they've even got a. Did they have word scrambles and things like that on there
Yeah.
too? Oh, that's
Yeah.
hilarious.
Yeah. It's absolutely
That's
hilarious. And it looks like each of these roles are differently themed as well, you know?
yeah.
Um,
Well, but what happens if you find like a sheet that you want to remember? Like, do you
then you
just
just
not
put it to the side, I guess. I
you
don't
put it
know.
to the side?
And then just, yeah, use the next square.
Mm. I want to see somebody that goes through and like circles all the correct answers on here and like re-rolls the toilet paper back up.
Yes.
That's funny.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely great. And I mean, I've heard of printed toilet paper in the past, but using it for language learning is probably the most useful that I've seen so far.
I guess so. Yeah. I
And
mean, it's
they've even got one here that's like it's called the billionaire one, where get rich while you poop, but it just has like fake printed money all across the toilet paper.
oh yeah, I've
Um,
seen like presidents and stuff like that.
yeah, but the language learning one by far is my absolute favorite that I saw on here so far. The puzzles and language learning, yeah, for sure.
I can
But
only imagine like somebody getting angry in the toilet, like as they're getting these questions wrong, and just making everything seem so much more intense.
yeah, I could imagine someone just sitting on the toilet and just like practicing their English while someone else is in the stall next to them.
Yeah,
And they're
yeah,
like,
that's
"Excuse
hilarious.
me," and they're like, "No, no, no, just reading my toilet paper." And they're like, "What?"
It looks like there's one right here that says toilet paper with a tape measure on it. So, what could you possibly need to measure in the bathroom with toilet paper?
Who knows,
Mm,
man? You gotta before you go to your tailor, you gotta check your trim. You know, who knows?
mm.
Yeah, we'll just say that.
I could just see like a competition between people who eat bad food in Japan. They just come out and like write 10 centimeters on
No, you're
here.
right. That's probably true. I could see people doing that too.
Oh
They
wow.
go to an all you can eat and just eat all night, or they just to see who ate the most food by waist girth, how much was added in that short period of time they were
Yeah.
eating.
Oh, so this is not just like English lesson. Like these this is
Yeah,
printed toilet paper that has a bunch of different stuff on it.
yeah, that's what I was saying. Like
Okay.
there's multiple different themes for each one, but the
Wow.
coolest one is definitely the language learning one. I like the yoga poses as well. The yoga pose is kind
Mm,
of funny. I don't know who would want to do yoga poses while on the toilet, but it shows a very distinctive photo of a lady leaning forward in front of a toilet.
mhm. I mean, hey, maybe it'll help like movement and things like that down there. Like I guess you compress things differently. I like that they did incorporate a toilet into yoga poses. That's pretty funny.
Which it looks like that one is the one that has um the ruler on it. So apparently that ruler
Ah, I
is to
see.
help you. You're supposed to do yoga poses and stretches and stuff while you're in the bathroom, and
Oh,
then
and
you
yeah, I
can
see
measure yourself.
the measure. It
Yeah,
says they put the measure on the toilet paper so you can wrap it around yourself and use it as a tape measure for your waist. So that
yeah,
way you can measure before you go and after you go, and just see how much you need to change your diet based on how drastic of a difference that is.
yeah, yeah. And the last news segment that we have here is going to be just kind of like a an update on Japan's population currently. We all know that their youth is always rapidly declining because no one's having kids as much as they used to in Japan. It's gotten to the point now, actually, where a number of elderly people in Japan are coming to coming out of retirement to start working again because there's such a bad labor shortage. It looks like the government is offering elderly people a substantial raise from what their previous uh, salary was to get them out of retirement to come help in the work in the the labor that is needed in Japan right now, which is crazy. And um, it it really is a shame that like nobody wants to their youth is getting more and more drastically lower and lower. Just last year 40% of the entire Japanese population was over the age of 65. Like put that into consideration,
Wow.
you know.
I did not realize it was that high.
Yeah,
Wow, that's
it's
insane.
pretty rough, and they said that the percentage has gone even higher this year, which I haven't really seen that. Um, what that exact statistic is. But yeah, it's absolutely insane that it's just there's so many people who are elderly that are trying to retire, but they can't get the pensions that they earned from working because there's not enough youth working in the labor field right now. So it's just wild, and they have to come out of retirement to work because the government is just begging them to come back out and to work because they need it. So it's
Yeah.
absolutely insane.
I feel like I watched a documentary, or maybe I'm just making this up. Maybe it was a dream and I don't know what I'm talking about. I feel like I saw something that was talking about why there's not a whole lot of people having kids in Japan.
Hmm.
And um, a lot of people were saying that it's because like so coming from somebody who's worked for a Japanese company and lived in Japan, like grew
Yeah.
up in Japan, the Japanese working environment is very toxic. Like it is
Oh yeah.
not a fun
It's
place to work at all.
it's not
The
something I
pay
ever
is
want to endure in my lifetime.
Yeah, I mean the pay is relatively low. Okay, so when I worked for a Japanese company here in the US,
Hmm.
that exact same job title, if I had been working for the company in Japan, would have been like 50% less salary. It would have been really low pay for the exact same
And you
job.
probably would have
And
worked
on
more hours too, because that's like
Yeah,
somewhat of a requirement too. Like you work an 8 hour shift, but your boss and everyone in all of your colleagues expect you to just hang out for 4 hours after your shift is over, just in case they need you.
absolutely.
You know,
Absolutely. And
it's very
their
toxic.
employees in Japan are expected to take pay cuts if the company's not doing well.
Hmm.
I mean, there's a lot of stuff as far as like the working world in Japan that's just like not really great.
Yeah,
But a
it's
huge part of that is like people don't have time outside of, well, this is changing, but people don't have time outside of work like they
yeah.
do in other countries in the West. So
Hmm.
people are so involved in their career, even women, that they aren't going out and meeting people because they literally do not have time for a family.
And another issue with that as well is a lot of salary men typically are required almost to go out and drink with their bosses and colleagues whenever they're asked to.
Yeah,
It's like highly frowned upon in the workplace if you refuse to go out to drink whenever you're offered to go out to drink by your boss, and it's more common than most people could even imagine.
do you
Um,
know why they do that?
why is it?
So when I was in Japan, when I was
Hmm.
like 18 and I was applying for this company to work there as like a translator. And on the application, I mean, this is when I was 18. So I'm 29 now. I was
Yeah,
18 in 2010. So this is to like 2010, 2011.
yeah.
And this company asked me on the job application, how much do you drink? And I was like, oh, I don't really drink. And they said, no, 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 no. How much do you drink? Like when you drink? And I was like, I don't know why that's relevant. Like, I know I
That is
grew
a
up in Japan, but like,
requirement in your
seems
like
odd.
application process.
Yeah. So
Holy cow!
when I started asking my Japanese friends about it, because I mean, as a kid, you don't really know a whole lot about the working world, even if you are
Yeah,
Japanese,
yeah.
So I asked a friend about it, and he's like, "Oh yeah, that's because a huge thing in Japan is that you take like like potential like business partners out and try to get them drunk for two reasons.
Hmm.
One, so that they like you and they become friends with you, and two, so that you can blackmail them with things that they did when they were drunk and being stupid. So like a lot of the times, like
Wow.
you'll go out and you'll pay a bar beforehand to give you fake drinks, and then you'll give them real drinks and get them drunk and take pictures of them doing stupid things, and then that's like an incentive for them to like sign whatever deal. And the weird thing is like they do that all the time, but people still fall for it like constantly. Like I don't understand how people still like will go out and get drunk and do something stupid in front of a potential business client and know that they're going to use that against them to like try to get a better deal out of whatever. But that's a huge part of
And
it. I
what's
mean,
crazy
besides,
too is like it's hard to avoid it in how the drinking culture is in Japan. You're not exactly pouring your own drinks when you go out with people. When
mhm,
your
yeah,
drink is empty, your friend next to you or your boss is pouring your shots nonstop until they're ready to go. There's places that they'll take you where it's all you can drink for 3 hours. you know,
yeah,
it's insane. Um,
yeah. I think those places are illegal in the U.S., but yeah,
they are.
they definitely have them in Japan.
Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised if like Louisiana has something like that because they have, in New Orleans they have they're allowed to keep bars open 24/7.
Okay.
So it wouldn't surprise me if they had something like that. I think it's really state by state that it dictates what type of alcohol laws there are in the United
Mm-hmm.
States.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I can't see that being like a norm in Japan or not in Japan, in America anytime soon to have something like that.
We
Um,
don't drink like they do in Japan. I think
no,
majority of America, if they tried, would like get alcohol
no.
poisoning real
Actually,
fast.
if anyone went to Google right now and looked up drunk salarymen on subways in Japan, you'll find thousands of photos of just your run of the mill everyday guy who goes and works just blackout drunk on a subway because it's that bad in the work field. They take advantage of their employees and force them to go out and drink, and they're out until super late hours in the night, and they have to work really early the next morning like nothing happened. It's insane.
Yeah,
I couldn't do it. It's nuts. It's like living in a college dorm without responsibilities. No.
yeah. There's actually there's actually a term in Japanese if you want to know a little bit more about the working culture. I mean, this is changing. It is not as bad as it used to be, but this stuff still exists.
Yeah.
The word karoshi is a um, word in Japan that directly means overworked to death, like a death by overworking.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a term that they've coined by people who literally die at their desk because they are so overworked that they just clock out right then. I
Wow.
mean, it's crazy. Um, I know. I mean, a lot of stuff has changed on policy, and it's not really changed in real life just yet. Too, like they've got really good paternity and maternity leave
Mm-hmm.
policies in Japan, but you're kind of like frowned upon to take them, and you will sometimes hear stories about people who get fired for actually trying to take advantage of these like new maternity and paternity laws,
Yeah.
even though legally they're allowed to do it. You know, they'll kind of like push them off to the side and eventually push them out. So I could see why people don't have kids in Japan as much because of the working culture.
Yeah. The work
And I mean, you
culture,
just
and
don't get,
and because of the working culture, they don't even have
yeah,
time to meet anyone. It's
yeah.
so
And it's
unfortunate.
unfortunate too, because in Japan, you could potentially get paid to have a child because the way the insurance works there, like you might have like an allotted amount of money that the
Mm-hmm.
insurance company is willing to pay for your child to be born.
Yep.
And if you go under that amount, then they'll send you a check for whatever is left over. So if
Yeah.
they're willing to dish out 10 grand and you have a baby and it only costs you 9,500, you could potentially get a check for $500 in the mail.
And they
Whereas
also
in the US,
offer a maternity leave before the pregnancy as well. They allow women to
mhm,
leave work early, months before they're
yeah,
pregnant, before they go into labor, so that because they want to make sure the kids are born and healthy. You know, they don't want the women who are pregnant in Japan to come to work on their feet all day and have a possible miscarriage because of being overworked. They just send them
yeah,
home a couple months prior to their due date and let them stay on their maternity leave even longer than what you would expect in America.
mhm,
They offer great opportunities for families who want to have kids. It's just unfortunate that nobody is having kids. You know,
yeah. No, that's too bad. I mean,
I would take
the
advantage of all of those options if it was in
yeah,
America for sure. Also, I just want to let everyone in the audience know. Thank you for coming. If you're not part of this Discord server, we'd be happy to have you join if you wish to. We're going to be hosting these podcasts, hopefully weekly after the next few weeks. We have one guest that we're waiting for in the next 2 weeks to join, but then after that, we're going to try and do like a week to week, same day, same hour basis on the podcast. Um, we do Q&As at the end of the podcast episode. So I have seen a few people raising their hands that they want me to bring them onto the stage. We'll be more than happy to bring people on the stage, but it'll just be at the end of the podcast that we will be doing some questions and answers. Before we get to the Q&As, though, a few the other segments I'd like to discuss. More anything is I did want to have first and foremost I wanted just have Josh kind of explains, you know, I know he already did kind of do an introduction at the beginning, but for those who weren't here for that, just kind of explain like where you're from, why you had to move out to Japan, if that's something you're okay with, or where you lived in Japan and how long you were
sure.
there, and like what kind of experience that was for you, just growing up in that time in your life, and then like coming back to the States. You know, just trying to like share a little bit more about yourself because I know that I personally am a huge fan of your content on TikTok. I don't know how many people also follow you on your TikTok that's on the server. I think everyone should. It's just like his username. It's Josh the Collins on TikTok. But um, I after watching your TikToks, listening to your podcast, that's when I was like, man, I can totally vibe with this guy, and I'd love to have him on the podcast as like the co-host. So I just, yeah, if you want to share a little bit about yourself to everyone, that'd be awesome.
Well, I appreciate that, man. So, like I said before, my name is Josh, and I grew up in Japan. So when I say grew up in Japan, some people kind of like question what that means. And so for me, what that means is I moved there in middle school. I stayed from middle school through high school, graduated high school there. I was 19 when I came back to the US. So, I mean, I didn't live my entire life in Japan, but the important years that I remember that like molded who I am as a person was spent in Japan.
Yeah.
I did go to an English speaking school though. So I did not go to a traditional Japanese school, but I did go to a cram school on the weekdays and weekends. I learned Japanese fluently, probably I would say conversationally fluently in about 18 months and fluent enough to like attend like exchange classes with actual Japanese students and be able to understand majority of what they're saying in about 2 years or so. I passed the JLPT at N2 when I was 15 um, after studying Japanese for about 2.5 years. And I should have taken it at N1 later on. So the JLPT, if anybody's not familiar, that's the Japanese language proficiency exam. That's what you have to take to become a Japanese citizen or go to college in Japan. It just kind of gives you a level of your Japanese fluency, and it's 1 through 5, one being the highest and 5 being the lowest. So I passed it at level 2 when I was 15 and continued to study Japanese until I was 19. But I never took it again just because I didn't really see a need for it. When I spoke Japanese to people, they were kind of like, "Oh, you must be half." And
Yeah.
so instead of like explaining to them like, "No, my dad's job brought us to Japan," I was like, "Yeah, I'm half." And like I would just get away with that a lot.
You lived
Um,
in Okinawa, right?
yeah, I grew up in Okinawa, which
Which is
is
definitely more English speaking foreigners that live there
yeah. There's a
in
lot of foreigners that
comparison.
live in Okinawa. Yeah,
Yeah.
um,
Which would make sense why you
there's a
went to an English speaking school, right? I'm sure
yeah,
that's more common
mhm,
in Okinawa than like inland
yeah,
Japan.
absolutely. And Okinawa is a really cool island. I mean, so where I grew up in Okinawa, if you're not familiar with like the layout of Japan, Okinawa is like part of the southernmost island chain called the
Hmm.
Ryukyu Island chains. I always explain it like it's kind of like how Hawaii is to the United States, where
Yeah.
it's part of the United States, but it used to be its own kingdom and has its own language and own culture. Same thing with Okinawa. Okinawa has its own culture and language that's separate from Japan. They have the Okinawa Uchinaguchi, which is Okinawan language. Um, and I used to speak a fair amount of that. I mean, I haven't spoke it in 10 years, so
Yeah.
I don't really remember much of it except for like the slang. So yeah, I had like a really interesting upbringing. You know, lived on the beach majority of my life. I could throw a rock really hard and hit water. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, like no joke. Yeah, I used to like go swimming in the ocean before school sometimes. And I grew up in Japan before Wi-Fi,
Surfing's pretty
so I
popular in
left.
Okinawa, right?
It is, but the waves aren't huge.
Yeah.
But
It's like
yeah, it's pretty
I mean
popular.
it's like comparing East Coast waves to West Coast waves. You know, the Outer Banks, you're getting 5, 10 foot waves tops on like a
Mm,
windy day, you know, or high
yeah,
tides. Um, but people will still surf their hearts out because they're there on the ocean. They have the ways to do it.
absolutely.
I've just heard from friends that live in Japan that Okinawa is where where they like to go whenever they want to go surfing. Um,
Yeah, I mean it's clear water. You can see all the way down, but the island is surrounded by coral. So that's what makes surfing different in Okinawa
hmm.
because
It's slightly more
in
dangerous.
yeah,
You
I
get
mean
pulled
if you
under with that
dive
tide.
in,
You're
mhm,
ouch. Yeah.
I've seen people that and a lot of people don't realize this, but coral's an actual living thing.
Yeah.
So it's not just a rock.
Hmm.
So if you fall in and you get snagged by coral really bad, you get tore up by coral, you have to make sure you get all of it out or you can get really bad infections. So like there's like some pros and cons to being around coral. You get a lot of really cool fish, but at the same time, if you walk on coral on your bare feet, you could step on sea urchins. You could get bit by uh, what is it called? Eel.
Hmm.
You could there's so many like dangerous fish that are not sharks that live in coral. Like you have to walk
Jeez.
out with like boots that are really thick so that if you step on something it doesn't go through your foot. And then when you get out you can go surfing and everything like that.
Um, and really all that I wanted to wrap up the podcast with before we go to Q&As is just a little bit of language learning. I know a lot of people here practice their Japanese as much as possible, if not regularly on a daily basis. And I know that getting a little bit of that, um, input helps a lot when people hear someone speaking in Japanese. And it's not as common for most people and most places in the United States to, practice with a native speaker. And Even though you're not a native speaking level, I'm sure. From what I've heard, it sounds really flawless. You sound really good when you're speaking in Japanese compared to my friends that speak Japanese natively, and I think it's definitely would be a help if we wanted to maybe share some Japanese language learning with everyone. And I figured we could just maybe go over some of the topics that we discussed in the news, and
Mhm.
we talked about Pizza Hut sandwiches and stuff like that. Um, but I guess let's talk about like lunch.
Sure.
Um, so if you were to ask someone if they want to go to lunch, what would you say in Japanese?
Sure. So before I say that, I just want to say one quick thing. So
Yeah.
Brandon is being very flattering right now. My Japanese is good still, but I've not spoke Japanese as like my primary language in 10 years.
Hmm.
So although I do still speak it, I would say my Japanese is slacking really hard, like really, really badly. So I don't want
As
anybody
much
to
as
be
you
like,
like to
oh,
think that I'm flattering, I think that you undercut your credit a little bit. So
I'm also doing that too because like if I slip up, like I have an excuse. I'm like, yo,
naturally,
I have
yeah,
not been in
no,
Japan in 10 years and
completely
I don't study
understand.
anymore.
Yeah.
So there's a couple different ways you could ask somebody out to eat. I mean, probably, like the most common way I would say it is like tabemashou ka. Tabemashou ka.
Hmm.
So that means shall we eat? It's just not necessarily asking them like to go anywhere,
Hmm.
but when you hear a Japanese verb, in this case, taberu is the verb, which means to eat.
Hmm.
When you hear shouka with that, shou means like let's do it. So shall we do it? And ka at the end of a sentence in Japanese is a question mark. So tabemashou ka means like shall we eat? And that's one way you could ask somebody to go out to eat. Or you could ask them directly if they want to go to a specific restaurant. So say there's Pizza La is a I think that's what the name of it was, is a popular pizza place where I grew up in Okinawa. So if somebody wanted to go there, they could say Pizza Ra ni ikimashou ka. So like I mentioned before, when you hear a verb that has shouka at the end of it, they're
Hmm.
asking you, shall we do whatever this verb is? So Pizza La ni ikimashou ka means shall we go to Pizza La? So that's one way you could also ask somebody if they wanted to go out and grab food with you. You
And
put me on the spot with that. I did not expect to have to give a lesson. I'm like, oh God, what do I say?
yeah, man, and I'm trying to make it as easy as possible. So, like, let's say that someone
That's all
wants
good.
to go out to drink. Let's say, hey, do you want to go grab a few beers? Something like
Sure.
that. Uh, Something that most people, when they go to Japan, they're going to want to ask their friends. Do you want to go grab a few beers? How would you phrase that?
Again, I guess there's a couple different ways. You can ask them if they want to go to a bar. You could
Hmm.
ask them if they want to go drink beer, or you could just say, let's go drink. So you want to ask like a friend, and this is like a friendly way that wouldn't be like a really high, um, what's the word? Like
Like a
honorific way to
formal,
ask.
yeah.
Yeah, if you want to say like, hey, you want to go to a bar, bar ni ikoka. Or you could even drop the ni, which is a particle. You say, ba ikoka. Like iko means let's go, and ka is a question mark. So ba ni ikoka means let's go to a bar. What do you think? You want to go to a bar with me? Or you could say, let's drink. Do you want to drink?
Hmm.
Nomoka, nomoka. Do you want to drink? Or nomimashou ka. Probably more common to hear nomimashou ka, which just says, do you want to drink? And that implies alcohol. I
Yeah,
don't think anybody that would hear, hey, do you want to drink? In that way, it would be
it's
like
going up
orange
for
juice or
Coke
whatever.
Zeros. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and you could also like go far into it and say, like, would you like to go drink beer at a bar? So that would be something like, bar de biru o nomi ni ikimashou ka?
But
Would
that's
you like
not
to go
typically how
drink
someone would
beer at a
say it.
bar? Yeah. So not necessarily how you would say it to a friend. So
Hmm.
I think probably nomimashou ka. Let's drink.
Let's drink. Yeah.
Or nomi ni ikou ka. Let's go to drink. Those would be two different ways. I could probably break this down a little bit better if I wrote everything down, so that way I'm not like going off what I'm thinking in my head instead
So,
of
um,
seeing it.
let's go to the next news topic, which was the toilet paper. How would
Mm-hmm.
you ask someone in Japan? Let's say you're in Japan for the first time. You don't speak much Japanese, and you just
Mm-hmm.
want to know where the bathroom is. How would you ask a native, "Where is the bathroom?"
Oh, this is like the most important phrase to know in Japanese.
Yeah.
You got to know how to say where is the bathroom, and you have to know. what people are saying when they give you directions. Otherwise, you're going to have like a really uncomfortable conversation about buying pants.
Yeah.
So to ask where the bathroom is, you first say the location when you're going to ask where something is. So the word for bathroom is the same as what you would find in like the UK, which is toilet. And the word for toilet in Japanese is toire. It's a
Toire.
borrowed word, toire. And then we're going to use the particle ni, which is kind of like to, like to. Toire. Oh wait, I'm sorry. Particle wa, wa, which
Toire
is
wa.
like yeah, toire wa, and then doko,
Mm,
which means where, desu ka, which just means is it?
gotcha.
It's a question
Okay.
mark. Toire wa doko desu ka means where is the toilet? Where is the bathroom?
Hmm.
Now that toire also includes like hand washing, so it's not like literally asking where the actual physical toilet is. It's the bathroom in general.
Yeah.
Toire wa doko desu ka means where is the toilet?
And you can literally just replace toire with another word in that sentence to ask where anything is, really,
Yeah,
if that helps. Um,
absolutely. Eki wa doko desu ka? Where is the station? Shibuya eki wa doko desu ka? Where's Shibuya station?
yeah. It's definitely a phrase I think is worth learning, for sure. And uh, let's see here. We had one more topic point, which
Yep.
was the elderly in jobs. So I don't know. I don't know if we really can. I really can think of something or put you on the spot for something in that category.
Just
Um,
trying to keep it like basic so that people can understand.
yeah.
Um, let me see.
How
Oh, that's a
about
good.
when do you work? Something like that.
Okay. So there's a couple different. Okay, if you want to ask like a friend in
Hmm.
Japan, like, hey, do you work today, or like, what time do you work today? Um, the most common way to ask a friend this is 今日は仕事?今日は仕事? So 今日は means today, and shigoto means work. So when you say this like quizzically, like asking a question, 今日は仕事? Do you have work today? So it's like a very basic way. Technically, the right way to say this, like more like a respectful way, would be 今日は仕事がありますか? Do you have work today? Or 今日は仕事しますか? Will you go to work today? Like, will you do work today? But you could
Excellent.
just say 今日は仕事, and that means you working today? Or you could ask them 今日は暇ですか?
Mm,
Means are you free today? Are you have free time today? And then
yeah.
they'll either tell you they have work or they have free time or whatever.
Gotcha. Um, and just one more phrase that I think everyone should learn if they don't know enough Japanese already, that I feel is very important if you're going to ever visit Japan, is do you speak or do you speak English? Um,
Oh yeah,
and I think if you can learn that and you can ask that to really anybody, that will really quickly dictate if there's going to be a serious language barrier if you don't speak much Japanese when you go to
sure.
Japan. So,
Yeah, and I'll teach that phrase. But the reason that Brandon is saying this is an important phrase too is because Japanese people are like people pleasers. So a lot of the times, if you just start speaking English to somebody and ask them if they can speak English, they may not say no. They might struggle to try to figure out if they can understand
hmm,
enough to help you out. And if you just straight up ask them in Japanese, hey, do you speak English? They're probably more likely to tell you, sorry, I don't speak English, than
yeah,
they would be if you were speaking English to them because they feel like it might be rude. So there's a couple of different ways you could ask somebody if they speak English. One way is to ask them if they understand English or if they speak English. I think probably understand English is the more important to ask than speak English, and that would be 英語わかりますか?英語わかりますか? Eigo means English, and then wakarimasu means do you understand it? And that would be, hey, do you understand English? You could also ask them if they speak English, and that would be Eigo hanasemasu ka? Hanasemasu ka means can you speak, and Eigo means English. So Eigo o hanasemasu ka? Can you speak English?
excellent. Yeah, and I think we can go ahead and move to the Q and A's. It looks like we have one hand up right now. It's going to be Weston, and Weston does live on the server. And I will warn you, Weston doesn't always have the best. Uh, he's a little bit of a potty mouth. So Weston, please keep it on the down low for the podcast. I greatly appreciate it if you could be respectful. I know you will be. I know you will be. But I'm going to go ahead and send you an invite to jump on the stage. All right.
Yo, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. What's going on, Weston? What's your question?
I actually uh, direct this question to Josh specifically. Bro, how
Mhm.
do you feel about the current shake situation in Japan?
About the current what situation in Japan?
Shake situation.
I don't know what that is.
Shake your booty.
Aw, Weston.
Oh,
Come on, man.
oh, good
Bro,
one.
I had
Weston.
to.
Got me.
I had to.
You're not allowed on the podcast anymore.
Okay, wait. I'm sorry. Wait.
That was like the best PG way to get got though. So I'm
He
cool
just
with it.
got it. All right. Um, Now, Beluga Junior, if I'm going to bring you on, it looks like you're a visitor, so maybe you're not familiar with all of the rules of this or of this server and the podcast. But you got to keep it PG and ask like a genuine question if you're going to ask. So I'm going to bring you on the stage, and please keep it real. Hey, Beluga, how you doing? No, all right, he's gone. He
Oh,
didn't want
okay.
to stay up, so
A little shy.
doesn't
It's all good.
doesn't look like anyone else wants to ask any questions, which is
Oh,
fine. Oh, wait, we do have one. All
mm-hmm.
right. And this is going to be Sarah.
Uh, Hello. Uh,
Hey.
my question was just, could you walk us through kind of um, what you would like eat normally on a day-to-day basis? Because I know in Japan, like from what I've heard, dairy isn't something necessarily huge over there. Like they tend to not have a lot of dairy, and it's more like fish and like vegetable based. So I was just curious, kind of like what was like a day-to-day thing to eat, because Japanese people are also known to be like typically healthy or have a healthy nutrition lifestyle. So I was just curious on if you kind of ate, I would assume you would eat similar to somebody over there, and what kind of what you had available, or maybe like what the grocery store would look like.
Sure. That's a really good question. Thank you for asking that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I had a really bad diet in Japan, but I had a bad diet for like Japanese people. I didn't have a bad diet like how it would be in the United States, where it's heavily filled with breads and sugars and things like that. I'll give you like what a typical meal would look like for breakfast, lunch, and dinner for like an average person where I grew up, though. Not necessarily me, because I'm eating like junk food all the time.
Yeah.
Um, in the mornings, a really common breakfast in Japan would be like some sort of fish with rice and miso soup. That's pretty common to see breakfast like that. They don't eat cereal in Japan.
Mm,
You won't find any sort of box cereals like you would find in the United States, or like eggs and bacon and pancakes and things like that. You maybe can find some places that will serve things like that in Japan, but it's not something they'll eat every day for breakfast like we do in the United States, at least. Um, for lunch, I mean, that could be a wide variety of food, just like with dinner in Japan. But usually you have rice with some sort of protein, which is most likely going to be chicken, beef, or chicken, beef, pork, or fish. More commonly, it's probably fish or chicken. And then some sort of like soup, maybe natto or something like that, like soybeans that are fermented. And then for dinner, anything from curry to spaghetti, ramen, soba is really, really common to eat. I think curry and ramen in Japan are probably eaten more than anything else, as far as like a traditional dish. And then, on weekends you might see people that go out to sushi for like once a month. People usually eat sushi in Japan. It's not really commonly eaten thing like every
hmm
day. And then you've got regular foods too. Like you've got bags of chips, you've got pizza places, you've got hamburger joints and things like that. It's something that they don't eat as often as we do in the West, though. Um, People that are on their way to work for lunch might eat something called a bento box. Bento box is like a pre-packaged lunch that usually costs like 500 yen or so, which is like maybe like $5. And it'll have rice, some sort of protein, some vegetables of some sort, maybe like carrots or something like that, and
Yeah.
maybe some sort of like soup-ish kind type of thing. But I would say most commonly rice, fish, chicken, beef, pork, and then some sort of vegetables. So they do have a very, very healthy, um, nutritional life in Japan.
I've also actually heard that if you're going to get like U.S. brand fast food, even when it comes to like pizza and stuff, you're probably going to spend a little bit more than you would expect to compared to U.S. prices. Um, like I guess Taco Bell and Pizza Hut. If you were to go there to get a pizza, it's going to cost roughly $5 more on a large pizza than what you would expect to pay in the U.S. So it's kind of deterrent in most ways for locals to even want to buy, those chain foods because it is a little bit more pricier, and it's more of, I mean, yeah, it's U.S. pizza, but or style pizza, but just because it's a U.S. pizza brand doesn't mean it's got the same toppings.
True.
A Taco Bell menu in Japan is not like a Taco Bell menu in the United States. You can buy mojitos on a Taco Bell
Yeah.
menu in Japan. So it
Mhm.
really does um, dictate a lot of people's eating habits too, compared to the U.S. The U.S. Our fast food is so cheap that it makes it almost impossible when you're on the go all the time, working and traveling, to not buy that junk food.
Yeah.
It's so affordable. So
Yeah, did that answer your question okay, or did you have more questions about that?
I had like one more question, which was basically just along the line of like, would you say like the quality of food is better over there? Because like Guitar said, like everything is kind of cheap over here along the lines of like fast food and whatnot. And I know over here we have like, I know for here, fruit is like easy accessible compared to Japan. Like Japan is definitely more expensive, but we also have a lot of like preservatives that are used in our fruit or like things that, don't make it exactly organic or all natural. So like along with like, if you like just went to the supermarket and bought like some like carrots or something like that, like does it just taste better? Like, can you tell that the quality's better? Or is it like not really of a difference?
Um, that's another really good question. You've got really good questions. Yeah, Monsanto, I believe, does not operate in Japan. I could be wrong. Monsanto's the like agricultural pesticides and herbicide company that gives people cancer all the time. I don't believe that they have stuff like they don't believe that Monsanto operates in Japan. They might. I don't know. I would say that yeah, especially when it comes to like beef. Beef tends to be higher quality in Japan, but it is a lot more expensive.
a lot.
Um, Fish is extremely fresh in Japan. I mean, it's an island, so it's always fresh fish. I remember being at a restaurant. There was like an Asian restaurant somewhere in the U.S. I think it was in Ohio, and the server was like, "Oh, we've got this fresh caught tuna," and I was like, "How do you have fresh caught tuna in Ohio? Like that's not you can't catch tuna in Ohio." And they were arguing, "Oh no, we just caught it today." I'm like, "No, you didn't. That's not how that works." Like, I think that you're confused about what kind of fish you're talking about. So when you're talking about fish in Japan, absolutely, it is way more fresh. But I do think that when it comes to certain like meats and things like that, I don't think that they have to be served like immediately after that
Yeah.
they're processed. I think that there can be an aging time where it's like still you can't really notice a quality difference. As far as the vegetables and things, I would say there is a slight difference with vegetables. There's a more profound difference with fruits. Fruits in Japan tend to be a lot more sweet, and certain fruits in Japan tend to be a lot more expensive. Like watermelons tend to be more expensive, and they're usually smaller. Um, yeah, there's just less area for them to grow, so they are a little bit more expensive. In the United States, I mean, I don't know where everybody's listening in from, but in the United States, we have like an excess of land. I drove from California to Ohio a couple
Oh
times,
goodness.
and there's nothing. Like
Nothing. It's
there's just
it's a
wide open
whole lot of
fields to do
nothing.
that. Although you do find that in Japan, most people don't actually live in those places, and a lot of those places are uncultivated. So
Hmm.
I would say that, yeah, the prices wise, fruits and vegetables and meat will be higher, but the quality is, yeah, it's noticeably better with fruits, and definitely with fish because it's always fresh. I don't think that fish ages well at all, unless you're talking about like specific Japanese gourmet dishes that age fish for a really long time.
Hmm.
All right. Well, thank you,
Uh,
Sarah.
no
I'm going to
problem.
get some more questions,
Yep.
and um, let's see here. Kitten's had her hand up for a while, or their hand up for a while. So I'm going to go ahead and have Kitten jump on. After that, I'm going to have Brett Williams jump on. He did message that since he's a moderator, he can't really raise his hand. He just jumps right on stage. So he will
Mm.
be next to jump in line. And
Okay.
then it looks like we have another person right after that. After that, with those three, we'll go ahead and bring it to a close for the Q&As. So I'm going to go ahead and send you that invite. All right, Kitten?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Hi, guys. So I was wondering, all right, as suicide rates have dropped over the years, do you believe that mental health is more appreciated, or do you still think it's a taboo subject in Japan?
Oh man, that's a heavy question.
That is a heavy question. Wow. It's a good question, though.
So I don't know if I can really speak on that because I haven't lived in Japan for a long time, although I still do keep up with the news. I would say based on the news that I see coming out of Japan, it seems like they are taking mental health more seriously than they did when I was there, at least. I think everybody in the world is really doing that too, even the United States. Used to be 10 years ago when you had, issues with depression, anxiety, bipolar, BPD, schizophrenia, or whatever. They just kind of like threw a bunch of medication at you. It just gave you Ritalin or a Xanax, and that was it. So I think that everybody's probably gotten better at it the past 10 years. So I would say they're probably taking it more seriously, especially since I've seen a lot of things about elderly deaths. They call them lonely deaths from people that the elderly that live alone and people don't check on them and they'll die. And because everything is automatically paid through their social security checks and things like that, nobody knows that they passed away until somebody comes in to clean an apartment years later and they find somebody there. So I think that Japan has kind of been more in the spotlight for things like that, especially with the internet. So because people are looking at Japan and saying like, wow, you guys have a really big problem, and we know this because it's on the internet. Like we find out like immediately.
Yeah.
I think they're probably taking it more seriously. But again, I don't know how much I can speak on it because I haven't lived in Japan in a while.
Much for answering my question.
Thank you for the question.
Thank you.
All right. And next we're going to bring on Brett Williams. So you can go ahead and jump in, Brett.
Cool. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can.
Awesome. I'm up for a walk, so sorry if it gets windy.
No, you're
But
fine.
one thing that I used to love about coming across like other foreigners when I was living in Japan was just how unbelievably different everybody's experience was in such a small country. So I'm curious. Well, first part of the question to see what question I want to ask is, did you have much chance to get over to like the kind of mainland of Japan, or did you mostly stick to Okinawa?
So I was almost never in mainland. I was only in mainland for a very short period of time, and I got lost in Tokyo trying to use the subways before Google Maps existed.
Yeah.
Naturally.
When you were in Tokyo, did you get rockstar syndrome, or not syndrome, but like rockstar, where I remember like 15 years ago, they used to get like really excited when they'd see foreigners because it was a lot less common than it is now. Mm-hmm. And like every time there was like a field trip, they would just like run up to me and be like, "Oh, you're so cool." And it's just like, okay.
I never experienced that in Japan. I experienced that in Taiwan when I was in Taiwan, because I met people that never met a white person before when I was in Taiwan, which is pretty cool.
Right.
But in Japan, I didn't, and I think that's because I assimilated so well that, I dressed like teenagers did in Japan. So, unless somebody was really looking and noticed that I had like tattoos on my upper arms, I'm speaking Japanese to my Japanese friends, and they're just assuming I'm half Japanese most of the time. So I never got that. But in Taiwan, I did, and it was really weird.
Yeah.
It's kind of cool, though.
Cool. All right. So, sorry. Now that I have the qualifier, my actual question, which is,
Sure.
Okinawa is probably like one area of all of Japan, except for maybe like up in Hokkaido, like that whole middle area I have a lot of experience with, but Okinawa, I've only been there once. Mm-hmm. So I'm curious kind of what areas you spent the most amount of time in, and if there's any like hidden gems that you're like, oh, tourists definitely don't ever find this place, that you would recommend.
Yeah, that's a good question. So I would say most of my time in Okinawa was spent near Yomitan, which is like a harbor area. But I was always up and down the island. For the last year and a half or so that I lived in Okinawa, I was homeless. Not like homeless, but like I didn't actually live anywhere. I just crashed on friends' couches. I was 18, 19, so it wasn't really a big deal.
And couch surfer.
Um,
I was at that age too.
yeah,
So
I was a couch
yeah.
surfer, and then I also lived in a shack on the beach kind of area. So I spent a lot of time in Nago, which is in the more northern-ish part of the island. It's a lot less populated. There's more people that speak the Okinawan language there. There's less foreigners. That's farther away from U.S. military bases, so you see less Americans as well. I always tell people if you really want to experience like traditional Okinawa, stay away from the south. Like Naha is the main. It's like the capital of Okinawa. There's a lot of foreigners there, and there's a lot of like Western influence there because it's a big city. Nago area and more northern part of Okinawa is probably still like traditional Japanese style or traditional Okinawan style. I also think that the outlying islands of Okinawa, like so, since Okinawa is part of the Ryukyu island chain, um, islands like Tokashiki or Ike Island, you can actually take ferries out to those places, or maybe like a bridge, depending on how close the island is. And yeah, there's a lot of other little islands that have less Western influence. Even Miyako-jima is really cool too. Beautiful place. And each one of those islands sometimes have a different dialect of Japanese that they speak that's like slightly different than the Okinawan language too. So that's what I would recommend. Hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, yes, very much so. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And thanks, Brett, for jumping on. Appreciate it, man.
Yeah.
All right, and I'm actually gonna bring Jules on next. So jump on, Jules.
All right, hello. You guys can hear me, right?
Hey, Jules.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right, I got another question for Josh. I was gonna ask that you talked about the work culture, like, isn't the best in Japan. And I think a lot of people know that, but at least your knowledge, do you know if it's getting better or it's changing?
Yeah, policy wise, as far as like the laws that help workers, has definitely been changing. Like I mentioned before, there are policies that people are kind of afraid to take because it's frowned upon, but those policies exist because people are trying to fight for a better working environment in Japan. So I think it's definitely better than it used to be. And I used to work for a Japanese company here in the US for quite a long time. I quit working there about 2 years ago. And when I would ask my Japanese managers like about the work life in Japan, they would tell me like, yeah, in Japan I'd be working like 90 hours a week, but years and years ago I'd probably pushing like 110. So it's getting better. It's still not the greatest, but it's definitely better than it used to be.
To add on to that, I was gonna say, do you think that's becoming more foreign friendly recently or no?
Foreign friendly as far as like foreign workers?
Yeah, because I've heard foreigners have a very limited line of work in Japan, especially because even if you are fluent in Japanese, like why would you hire a foreigner when you can just hire a native Japanese person? And it's way more, it's way easier in the workforce for employers, so they'd rather just do that. And foreigners have a very limited, like unless it's English involved, they usually aren't hired. Like English teacher, maybe in customer service, like hotels. Is that like opening up recently or?
I have not noticed a whole lot of it. I mean, if it is, I'm not really noticing it. You're right. There's not a whole lot of avenues that foreigners can take in Japan outside of English teaching, which has got to be the number one, and then some sort of customer service English speaking role. And a good part of that too is that working visas are really expensive. So a company has to sponsor a foreign worker to do that.
So I can actually answer a little bit on that topic as well, because I'm constantly reading up on the news and policy changes and new laws and regulations and everything going on in Japan on a daily. And I will say that yes, it actually is becoming more foreigner friendly whenever it comes to job opportunities in Japan. And to be completely honest, it's mostly for the diversity effect. They want that a few foreigners in the office space, even if you aren't actually working. Believe it or not, you'll be surprised how many jobs are offered to foreigners in Japan where you're not actually doing anything. They just want an American in the office building. But it's not even just that. There's jobs that you wouldn't even think of that are available to Americans now in Japan, like modeling jobs are very easy to come by, or even small acting roles. And it's stuff like that that you wouldn't even think of. That you just kind of have to think outside the box. What is it that they'll more than likely want a foreigner, you know, in this job role or would they not want a foreigner in this job role? Obviously, it's going to be a little difficult for like a foreigner to take on as an apprentice at like a sushi restaurant, in Japan. But there's definitely a lot more than you would probably anticipate compared to what it was 5, 10 years ago.
Thank you. That answered my questions.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for jumping on, Jules. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Well, I'm out.
All right, later, man.
All right. Do we want to take this one last question since there's only one person left?
Yeah. All right, Gaster. I see that you're not a member on the server, so I just want to let you know you probably don't know the server rules or the podcast rules, but we do try to keep it as PG as possible, and if you could try and keep it as relevant to the podcast if you can, if you have any questions. So let's just go ahead and bring you on real quick.
Thanks for bringing me on. And don't worry, I'm like those people that trying to join the other stages. I'm legitimately in Japanese and reading up on Japanese culture every day and proficiently trying to learn the language. Obviously, level 2 in Duolingo isn't enough to qualify as proficient or even semi. But I had one question regarding laws in Japan, similar to what Jules is asking.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what differences in laws is an American like me more likely to encounter in Japan? Like what's a significant difference that I might run into?
Oh man.
Jobs.
So laws regarding jobs or laws just in general in Japan?
Laws in general. Because
Okay.
you just answered the last one.
Sure. I actually have a TikTok video that blew up about this that a lot of people were arguing with me about who had never been to Japan, which made me laugh.
Naturally.
They were like, "Hey, you're wrong about that." I'm like, "Oh, okay." So, probably the most common ones that you see that don't really affect most people, but these are ones that are really majorly different. Firearms are illegal in Japan, and I say they're illegal, although technically they're not illegal. They're just almost impossible to get, and like nobody carries like any sort of firearms in Japan. Even police, like only like probably like 15 to 20% of police carry guns in Japan, and they're usually like revolvers. So that's a really big difference if you come from a state that is very heavy into that. Ohio's pretty big with it, so that's a pretty big difference.
Yep, Arizona. I own my own.
Yeah. So that's a really big difference. Hunting in Japan is not a thing. There's also really strict laws regarding drug use. So marijuana is very heavily illegal. When I was there, the saying was that anything over a gram of marijuana could get you like 10 years in jail because they might consider it drug trafficking if it was a large enough amount. So that's a really big one too. So drugs, huge no-no. But fun fact, or not so fun fact, the most commonly used drug in Japan is actually not marijuana, but methamphetamines. Mm-hmm. So that's an interesting one. That's one for a dark hole to go down at a later time, though.
If you don't consider alcohol as a drug, I suppose. But yeah.
Yeah. So another one would be drinking in public is totally legal in Japan. You could walk down the road with a beer in your hand and you're not breaking any laws. You could also drink inside of a moving vehicle as long as you're not the driver. But the DUI blood alcohol content that you can have in Japan is 0.02, which equates to like half of a drink. So getting a DUI in Japan is very, very easy. So I would recommend anybody not to drink and drive at all, but especially not in Japan because you will blow even if you drank like 2 hours ago. So those are probably the most like big shockers. Other ones, it just kind of comes with like day-to-day life, like you can't smoke in public in a lot of places in Japan. They're more like local ordinances rather than laws. A lot of places you have designated smoking areas, even outdoors. I would say that the police in Japan have a stop and frisk policy that doesn't exist in most U.S. states. Used to. I don't think that any U.S. state still has them. I mean, they might. I'm not sure. But they can stop anybody they want and search their pockets and their bags and things like that. You can't really do that in the U.S. easily, at least. Trying to think of anything else that's like super, super major. A lot of this stuff is like political kind of laws. Like your rights as a person in Japan is different than what they are in the United States, especially because you're a foreigner. So I would just say it's hard to break a law unknowingly in Japan unless you're doing something that might be a gray area even where you come from. So as long as you don't bring any guns or drugs into Japan, you're probably good. Like it's hard to accidentally break a law in Japan.
Gotcha. That's what I was somewhat worried about because obviously moving to another culture, even just visiting temporarily, is definitely an experience.
Yeah, it's not like I think it's Singapore. Was it Singapore that has like really strict laws with it? I'm not sure. It's not like
Yeah.
Singapore where if you like spit gum on the ground that you can get caned. Like it's not strict like that.
Yeah, with Singapore, basically anything that defaces outside property immediately lands you a gigantic fine because they're supposed to be like the cleanest city in the
I
world.
was gonna say,
which
have
is
you
why
seen Singapore?
yeah, literally, their police drive Lamborghinis,
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
or in this case, Teslas.
Wow, that's crazy. But yeah, I think you'll be good. I mean, it's really hard to get in trouble in Japan unless you kind of intend to.
Just know if someone
But
comes up and asks if you want some happa, just say no.
I will say though, if you ever do get into legal trouble in Japan, it's a really bad thing if you're a foreigner because
Very.
they can hold you in jail in Japan for pretty much an unlimited amount of time. Like they don't have to charge you with anything, and they can hold you for quite a long time, especially if you're a foreigner. So I would just avoid any unsavory stuff because people don't realize like how unsafe you are as a citizen of a different country when you're in a foreign country, especially Americans, because most Americans have never been to a different country. You know, we assume like we have rights, and that does not extend to other countries necessarily. So,
Let me put it this way: in Japan, they actually have a 98% incarceration rate, which means 98% of people who are picked up by the police and have to even spend a night in jail. It's not like here in the States where it is you're innocent until proven guilty. The police there will pretty much threaten you with everything you got until you just admit that you did it, and then you pay a fine and you can leave. Uh, it actually blows my mind how much the Japanese government can get away with, even with foreigners, whenever it comes to that. So, like, they have the highest rate of people saying that they're guilty. It's like a 99% um, of people who have been arrested in Japan have just said they were guilty just so they can pay a fine and get out, because they can just hold you for days and days, if not weeks and weeks, until your court date. And your court date, they can keep pushing it back further and further and further legally until you just say, screw it. I did it. Okay. Even if you didn't do it, you just say you did it so you can pay a fine and they'll just let you go. It's kind of insane, actually. So even if you technically weren't really doing something you weren't supposed to, but a bunch of foreigners or the locals pointed their fingers and said that the foreigner did it, just say that you did it. Just pay the fine and move on.
I
It's
don't want to
usually the
scare you though.
easiest route.
That
It's
would be a
similar to
really
with
rare thing though. Just don't freak out too much about that. I don't know
Yeah.
anybody that's got picked up on accident like that before.
Yeah, it's not like it's going to happen to you. I'm just saying that if you do have to get picked up for any reason, you're more than likely going to stay there for days in jail until you just say you were guilty. It's just how it's been literally spread across like almost all topic points whenever it comes to Japanese prison life and
Mhm.
foreigners and such. That's the best way to just handle it. Is just say you were guilty and just pay a fine.
Semi-ironically, it's very similar to the police in San Diego. They'll literally give you they'll cite your car if it looks like a race car or could be something that may have sped even a tiny bit, and immediately they hit you with a ticket because when the court looks at it, they're more likely to say that you did it than not, just to
Interesting.
meet a quota.
Wow.
So the United States isn't any better, but hey, that's legal for you.
Yeah, I'm glad I never had to get mixed up anything like that. Thanks for the question. That was an interesting question.
Yeah,
I like answering
absolutely.
different stuff like that.
All right.
Yep.
Well, take care, and it was nice meeting you, Gaster.
Thanks.
All right. And I think I saw Kate, who is a moderator on here, put her hand up, but I don't see her in the audience anymore. So I think I'm actually just going to go ahead and look at the quick text to voice real quick, see if there's any legitimate questions that anyone has. Um, it just looks like everyone's chatting amongst themselves right now. um,
Forgot there's the text to voice thing. I haven't looked at that at all.
yeah, there's the text to voice where everyone's going at it. Weston, you had your chance. I'm sorry, bud. You're not gonna be allowed to say anything else. Um, and Jules, is it a question that you can just type out and text a voice real quick? He said he had one more thing he wanted to add. So maybe
Okay.
we can just check what Jules had to say.
Oh, I missed so much of that text to voice. I'm gonna have to go through and like
Oh, I guess
be
he
reading
said
for
that it
like an
was.
hour.
He said it was for Brett Williams, but Brett left. So yeah, I think that's gonna wrap it up for tonight. Oh, and there's Brett.
Sorry. There's just one thing I wanted to add because I actually know somebody that got kind of messed up by this pretty bad. One thing you do want to make sure you never do when you go to Japan is have a drink, even if you're not drunk, and ride your bike. I had a friend that was
serious
in
DUI.
prison. Yeah, he was in jail for like almost a year while he waited. Not a year. It was like 6 months while he waited to get deported. And
Wow.
yeah, and it was a bad case too because he was like the girl that was with him. He's like, is this okay to do? And she's like, yeah, it's fine. And so
That
he got in like
sucks.
deep trouble. Yeah. So I
Yeah.
think that that's the only thing I can think of. Like like everything else is pretty obvious. That's the only thing I could think of that is like, oh, I wouldn't really think of having one drink, like even if you're not drunk and not hopping on a bike. So that's one thing. Anyway, sorry.
No, that's a good point. That's a lot of people, do travel by bike in Japan, so that's a good thing to add.
And it looks like Kate did come back. So are you okay with just one more quick question and we'll wrap it up for the night?
Yeah, I'm fine with it. I don't care. I just want to make sure you had time. I've got all the time in the world.
Yep, I'm good.
I'm self-employed, which means I don't do anything most of the time.
Awesome. All right, I'm bringing you on, Kate.
Hello.
Hi.
Hey. So, I'm a scuba diver, so I have been around reefs before and stuff like that. And I actually had an incident with coral before. Like I hit my knee on a big chunk of brain coral. So I wondered if you have like any similar experiences with that in Okinawa.
With coral specifically, I
have sea life.
Oh yeah. Oh man, I've got a lot. Okay, so I'm trying to think which would be like the best story to tell. I guess I've got two big ones that people like, or three ones that people really enjoy. I'll briefly go over them, so they're not really that long. The first is that I jumped into the ocean near the coral, and then a jellyfish went directly up my swimming trunks as I jumped in. You can't really see them that easily, and it stung me directly on my butt, and that hurt really bad. Luckily, it was not a box jellyfish; it just stung really bad, and they're terrible. The other would be, so in Yomitang in Okinawa, there's like it's like what is it called in English? A port, a harbor for boats and things like that. And we would swim out to this like a barge or something like that. I guess it's supposed to like break up waves before they come and like mess up the boats, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you swim over like some coral area, and then it's wide open water I don't know how deep it is. It's like you can't see to the bottom of it, even though it's clear water. And we used to jump off this barge into the ocean because the barge is like 60 feet up. You would just climb up this cement block and jump off of it. And I remember one time I was swimming and I had goggles on and I was looking down. I was looking at all the fish around, and then the fish just disappeared. And I was like, man, that's kind of weird because like they don't usually care about humans. I mean, if you've been scuba diving, like when you're swimming, fish don't usually care too much about people.
Oh no!
You just like go up and touch a lot of them. So they just kind of all just disappeared. And I was like, that was weird. And I kind of felt like a really uneasy feeling, like something was watching me. Like you ever start thinking about Jaws when you're swimming in a swimming pool, and you're like, oh god, I got to get out of here, even though it's like chlorine. So it felt weird. We got out, didn't think too much about it, and then a week later on the news, they found a pregnant great white shark that was following boats into the harbor. Man. I can't help but wonder if, while I was swimming and all those fish disappeared, if there was a great white just like chilling underneath us. Yeah, they ended up putting it into an aquarium and it died shortly after, but it was like a 1,200-pound great white. Wow. They just found swimming in this exact area. So they closed all this stuff down, wouldn't let people swim there anymore.
That's wild.
But I've been
crazy stuff like that happens all the time. It really is like just the ocean is terrifying.
Absolutely. I mean, I've been stung by things. I've been bit by things. I've had sea snakes like curled up around like my hands and fingers and things like that as I'm like climbing around the coral. I've stepped on sea urchins, but I've never had anything like really insane happen. Or maybe I have and I just forgot. I don't know.
Yeah, but great whites are like never a good thing to encounter. Nurse sharks. So I've swam with nurse sharks before, and they are totally chill. But like, I cannot imagine a great white just being in the proximity.
Yeah, when they put that up on the news, my mom's like, "Yeah, you're never swimming in the ocean again."
That's how I feel sometimes. I'm like,
Yeah.
after I see like a squid or something like that, like during a night dive, I'm like, I hate the ocean so much. They're just so pretty.
There's one thing that I just remembered. There was a time that my friends and I almost died without knowing, and it's not as scary as it sounds. But we found a blobfish. That's what they called it, at least. I don't know what it's actually called. But there's this fish in Okinawa. I'm sure it's in other places too, that absorbs poisonous fish, and that's like its defense mechanism. Like when it kills these poisonous fish and eats them, it absorbs their poison. So this blobfish supposedly just carries the poison of like dozens of fish that it's eaten before, which means that if you were to eat this fish, that you could die because there's so many different types of poison that like float in this thing. I don't know how accurate that is. I'm not a marine biologist, but somebody told me this, and we found it. We're like, whoa, what is this? And my friend's like, I don't know. Let's eat it. So
that's the go-to, like, right? Eat it.
Yeah, we were like getting ready to, because we would go like spearfishing all the time and just like catch like random fish, and it wasn't really anything you thought about because you know like certain fish you can't eat.
Yeah.
But we were like 14, so we weren't really thinking much about it. And then this old Okinawan guy comes over and starts yelling at us, and he's like, "If you eat that, you're gonna die. It's super poisonous." And I was like, "Wait, what is it? Like, how is it poisonous?" And he said, "It eats poisonous fish, and then that poison just stays in that fish." So that's probably the closest I've ever come to actually dying. Because if he wasn't there, I absolutely would have eaten it. But yeah, I still have all my limbs.
Crazy.
Never got bit by a shark or anything.
Wow. That's all I had. A little fun question. So thank you for answering it.
Thank you for asking. That was a good one.
Thanks for jumping on, Kate. Awesome. Well, I think that's everything for today. Did you have anything else that you wanted to throw in there, Josh?
No, I think this was a good one. This was a very long Q&A session, but I figured that it would probably be for the first one a little bit longer than the actual podcast.
I think I'm going to try and keep it down to maybe 3 or 4 from now on, and it will become first come, first serve, who shows up and who keeps their hand up. And that's essentially how I'm going to roll from now on in the future episodes. And the only time I can really see it changing in the Q&A sessions is if we have a guest on and they have it's kind of up to their schedule as well. But yeah, I think that's everything that I wanted to throw out there on the podcast today. But yeah, thanks for coming, everyone, and keep your comments, your questions, and your stories coming. And you can dump all of those on my new email that we have for the podcast. It's just traveljapanpodcast@gmail.com. And we'll look forward to seeing you again next week.
Absolutely. I do want to plug myself really quick because I'm all about self-promotion.
Please plug.
So my username on here at Josh the Collins, that's the same as my username on like literally everything. Mm-hmm. On Instagram, where I'm a photographer, by the way. I do film photography and videography, things like that. A lot of fine art portraits and weird hipster stuff. And then on TikTok as well, where I post a lot of Japanese related content and things where I think I'm a comedian, but I'm not that funny. You can check out my website too. It's joshthecollins.com. So if you guys want to check me out, joshthecollins.com, Josh the Collins on Instagram and TikTok. I have a Twitter, but it's like mainly like me being snarky towards people as a joke. And I don't remember what the name. I think it's Trash Sashimi or something like that. I don't remember. So that's my stuff if you want to go check out what I do.
Awesome. All right. And yeah, that's everything. And we'll look forward to seeing you guys hopefully next week. At the latest, 2 weeks from now, we do plan on bringing on the guest, Tori Peebs. So she's actually going out to Paris in the end of October, and we're going to try and have her on before she leaves. So
that's awesome.
Awesome. All right. Well, you guys have a good one. Take care.
Bye bye.